Hi everybody and welcome back to Kevin's Upfront Opinion. So today I thought I'd speak about what I've been most proud about through my life. Okay, now initially I originally recorded this about a week ago, and then my wife heard it because my daughter was on my 5-year-old daughter with Down syndrome was on my phone, going through my phone, started playing some of the videos that I had on it, because I recorded it on my mobile phone. And my wife never spoke to me for 3 days after hearing the video. And I think it went on for about 15 minutes, talking about different things of what I was proud about, what I was less proud about. And it was more a case of what I was proud of, which she wasn't too happy with. Well, I guess she wasn't too happy with because she never spoke to me for about 2 to 3 days. And she never actually spoke to me about it. And the main reason she didn't speak to me was because I said some things about her daughter. It's not my daughter. Okay, when I say she's not my daughter, she's my stepdaughter. So I'm not her biological father, so to speak. Okay, so I thought I'd redo it to rehash it because I originally deleted it. So when I actually look at my own personal life, and the reason I decided to do it was a few weeks ago, I had a breakdown. Literally I had an emotional breakdown, nervous breakdown, whatever you want to call it. And I got made to go to the doctors and I got put on antidepressants. And it was a few days after speaking to my ex-girlfriend. It wasn't her that caused it or anything, but ex-girlfriend I spoke to and brought back a lot of memories, and there was other things that were involved in it. So I decided to do this video because of it. So the reality is, what is it that I'm actually most proud of? Because everybody's different at the end of the day. And this is what it boils down to for me. Now, if my wife goes and listens to this again, I'm going to get in trouble for the first thing. Because there's about 3 things, but I can say arguably 4 things. Number 1 was the day that I became a father. Now, the day I became a father, there's different ways I can look at it. Was when I found out I became a father, I was actually at my mum's house. Okay, I didn't even know that my now ex-girlfriend, she's a lovely girl. She truly is a lovely girl. I never actually got the message. She says that she sent me a message, but I never actually received any message on my phone or anything. And I found out via Facebook message her sister put on Facebook. She's another lovely girl. She really is. She put a comment on Facebook, and that's how I found out. And I was really annoyed at the time, and I eventually managed to get over it. And that was 6th of August 2009, and I actually started crying. And I've never actually admitted that to anybody. The only person that actually knows I actually started crying is my existing wife, because she's spoken to me about it, and my mother, because my mum was with me and she asked me why I was crying, and I told her why. And that was the moment that I actually, first time in my life, I was actually proud of anything. Because I've worked in sales and I was pretty damn right devious and dishonest. I've worked in the double glazing industry most of my life and done other types of sales, working in telecommunications and everything. And you have to be dishonest to get ahead in those industries at the end of the day. So I was never really that proud of anything I was doing. But the moment that day happened, I was really happy and really proud in everything. And I only wish I was able to tell my ex-girlfriend, which I was unable to, which is something I'm not going to go into on here because this isn't the platform to speak about that. So that was the number one time, which was 2009. Now, if you go forward, about 5 years, I think it was 2014, I met my existing wife. And over those 5 years, I deteriorated, made an awful lot of mistakes, had lots of affairs, slept around quite a bit, which is nothing to be proud of, did a lot of drugs, drank a lot, abused my health in a massive way. And I met what is now my wife. When I met her, she had, I'm sure she was 13. I've been told she was 14, but I was sure that she was 13. She had a daughter. Okay. And when I met her daughter, it was an extremely strained relationship. And when I say strained, because she didn't like me. She didn't want me around, which I understand. She was 13, 14 at the end of the day. I remember what I was like when my mum brought somebody into the fold and everything. I was a jerk. I was an absolute jerk and ass, to be honest. And I was a lot worse than my stepdaughter was. And it got to a stage where I knew I had to turn my life around. And I did turn my life around. You know, the person I was from 2009 to 2014, I'm a completely different person. You know, and at the end of the day, being honest with myself, I should have turned my life around in 2009. Didn't. And it cost me everything. And that's something I'm having to deal with at the moment, due to counselling and everything, which I'm trying to face up to. But when it came to my stepdaughter, she was the main person. It wasn't my wife. It was that child that made me turn around. And I remember the first piece of advice my wife gave me. And this was it. It was a simple piece of advice. And she said, don't make the mistake my ex-husband made by making promises to my daughter and then break them. That was a piece of advice she gave me. And I remember after, it must have been a couple of weeks, might have been longer, might have been shorter, honestly can't remember. And her daughter said to me that she wanted to go back to the stables up in Portsmouth. I can't even remember what it's called now. And I said, okay, I'll go up there and I'll get your name put down. And she said, no, you won't. I said, yeah, I will. So, because I was still working in the home improvement industry. And I said to her, right, I said to my driver, because I was his boss at the end of the day, driving me around, I said, right, it's Peter Ashley, that's it. Peter Ashley Activity Centre. I said, right, give me a lift up to there and then we'll go to work. He said, what? I said, I need to go and do something. So I went and got a name put down, phoned up my wife, said, right, put a name down so she can't throw it back in my face. And I've always gone by that piece of advice. And that'd be about 2014. And I've gone by that piece of advice every day. So that's what, 11 years ago. But if I've ever said that I'm going to do something for her, always made sure I did it. And never broken a promise to her. And I don't think I ever broken a promise to her or any of my other children. Or should I say my younger children. And obviously I've always done the best I can. I've never admitted that to her. I never would. You know, if she watched this video, I'd point blank tonight, I'd say this is AI. It's not me speaking. Voiceover. I'd point blank. You know, I might even have to block her so she can't watch it. You know. And when it comes to pride, you know, some of the most proud things, even though I didn't give her away at a wedding because I wasn't asked or anything, you know, watching her to walk down the aisle. Actually, no, because I was outside. I lied. So I saw her getting out of the horse-drawn cart or horse-drawn carriage, walking into the church, and then walking down the aisle, and then sitting at the back because I got put at the back. And watching her get married. Now, that particular day, I was extremely ill. Now, she doesn't know that. I was really ill that day. Almost ended up being rushed into hospital. But I managed to get through the ceremony and got through that day. How I got through that day, I still do not know to this day. And when she had her first child. You know, so I've always had a lot of pride in her with being able to help her in the small ways that I could without trying to make it about myself. Because at the end of the day, one of the problems is when you have a stepchild, it's always going to be thrown back in your face by saying, yeah, but you're not my father, or you're not my mother, whatever way it is at the end of the day. And it always will happen. You know, I've had it happen to me on countless occasions. She's never personally done it, or not that I can remember, and her mother certainly hasn't, because, to be honest, I'd go ballistic at her if she ever did say that to me. But when it comes to my stepdaughter, I've always had a lot of pride in everything she's managed to do and everything she's managed to achieve. Now, the other two things people might actually find a bit strange, because obviously for my first daughter, I wasn't there when she was born. She was born by emergency. Well, it wasn't emergency. She was born by cesarean section. My second child, I was unable to be there because I wasn't able to get there quick enough. My third child was born due to emergency cesarean section. That was a boy as well. Well, I was at the hospital, but I couldn't look after my son and be in there, even though I lied to my wife, said I'd be in there and everything with her, lied point blank to her, and got a student midwife to go in with her. So I was unable to be there for that birth. So that's 3 births down that I've missed. You know, most people, that's how many kids they have, and I've already missed 3. Okay, now number 4 and number 5. I had 2 daughters, which would be my daughter Jemima, who would be 7 now, and my daughter Jasmine, who would be 5. And I can say this without any doubt, I hated every single moment of being there. And this is why. Because most men, through history, you know, you go and watch programs like, I can't remember what it's called, program all the women watch, you know, about the babies. I know it's on at Christmas, they have the Christmas special, and it goes through like January and February. Meet them, the midwives program, and you got the dad's bit just outside the room and wanting to be in there and everything. They're out of their mind. Out of their mind. I was at 2 births. Okay, and I hated every single minute of it, and this is why. Now, I'm the type of person who likes to have control or be able to plan things. And obviously, when it came to them births, I wasn't able to control anything. It was completely out of my control. I didn't cause the midwives any problems. I said, if I get in your way, just push me out of the way or just kick me out of the room. I'm not going to be offended. You've got a job there to do. And, I just went down like the 50s and 60s route. If you want to kick me out, kick me out. I'm not going to be offended. And I remember having a go at my wife. Well, she wasn't my wife at the time. We were engaged at the time when she was in labour with Jemima, and told her, stop being a stubborn ass and just take the gas in her, because I couldn't stand watching her suffer. That was my problem. Couldn't stand watching her suffer. And I hope my wife doesn't watch this. And I don't know if she remembers me actually. I didn't shout at her as such, but I had a go at her and said, just take it. I don't care if you don't like it, just take it to ease the pain. And she eventually agreed to take it. And the main part of the labour was, I think she said it was like 15, 20 minutes, something like that. It was pretty damn quick. And when she was born, and this is one of the proudest moments in my life, and I was actually surprised because I wasn't expecting it. So midwife has hold of the baby, hands it to my wife, and umbilical cord still attached and everything. Quickly wraps a blanket around her, if I remember rightly, and called me by my name and said, do you want to cut the cord? I thought, I've got no idea where I'd cut the cord. I was actually surprised for them to even ask me, because even though I know a lot of people that have had babies and everything, I'd never been there, even though technically, it's my fourth child. So I said, yeah, that's fine, that's no problem. So I cut the cord. And the pride that comes over you straight away. And I let my wife hold my daughter Jemima first. And I let her, I can't remember her putting a nappy on. It might have actually been one of the midwives. And she gave her first bottle. And then she handed her to me. And when you got a baby, it's like, I suppose, I know the old saying is like size of your hand if you watch the programme, but she was bigger than that. And then just holding her and my wife asking me to finish off feeding the bottle to her. Unless you've had a child, and most men won't admit to this, the feeling that comes over to you, because I just sat in the chair next to her, there was like an incubator in the room. Not that she was due to go in an incubator or anything. The feeling that came over me was a strange feeling, but I can't actually explain. And the same thing, almost, but slightly different, when it came to my daughter Jasmine. Because when it came to my daughter Jasmine, it was a lot of relief, because my daughter Jasmine was born with a heart condition. And we'd been warned, and it was actually a consultant that delivered her. It wasn't one of the midwives. The midwives weren't actually, they were supposed to deliver, but they didn't, because consultant was in the wrong place at the wrong time, if you understand what I mean. And he had already warned that she could come out blue, but she didn't. And it was like a moment of relief that she was all okay. Because at some stages we got told she would never survive. She had no chance. We had to abort. And I said to my wife, we can't abort. So when she came out and she was fine, or fairly fine at the end of the day, she wasn't completely fine. It's that moment of relief. And yet again, I got asked to cut the cord, which I did do. Even though on both of them, my wife had hold of her and the midwife just told me where to cut. So they were the other things that I felt really proud of. And for my last child, God, I've had too many children and there won't be any more. That was an emergency cesarean section, and that day was actually a living hell. And it wasn't my wife's fault or anything, because of what the complications what happened. But the only other thing that I have been proud of is what I've managed to achieve from a business point of view and going against the odds. Because I remember many years ago when I was a kid, my grandfather said to me, don't bother going to work. And my grandfather worked all his life. He was a lifer in the RAF, served during the Second World War. You know, but took part in the Africa campaign, was in Italy, plus Cyprus and plus other places during the Second World War. And he served in the military most of his life. And most people are going to say, why on earth did he say that to you then? And this is the reason why. He said, because he knew I had, or I do have, should I say, problems with my health. And I have a lot of problems with my health. You know, if I look at my health personally, I have 3 types of epilepsy. I've had a stroke in the past. I've had a suspected heart attack in the past. And a lot of that's because of the hours I worked. You know, at one stage I was working over 100 hours a week, every single week. I was working 7 days a week. You know, when you're getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning and not finishing work until 11 o'clock at night, only one thing's going to happen. So I would never suggest it to anybody. But I was doing that to provide everything that I humanly possibly could for my kids, because I set up businesses. And being able to create them from nothing. I remember starting up my first business, I had £10 in the bank. That's what I had. That's what I set it up with, £10. £9.99 to set up a Vista print website. Got a deal with a particular company that I still work with to this day, and I set that up 8 years ago. Coming on for 8 years. It'll be coming for 8 years. 7 to 8 years ago I did that. And still having that and still being able to compete when I'm competing with some of the biggest companies in this country. And I've gone on to set up another double glazing company. I've gone on to set up a newspaper, and I can look at that and be proud of what I've achieved without really getting any help from anybody. Yes, my wife's helped me out and supported me, but then there are things that I'm extremely unproud of that I've done, which I'll speak about in the next video, and some of the sacrifices that I've made that I can never forgive myself for. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you all again a bit later.